Everyone in One Piece absolutely loves Luffy, right? Well, at least almost everyone. But who's actually Luffy's best friend? Well, that's exactly what we're going to find out in today's video by giving each One Piece character a friendship percentage on how close they really are to Luffy. Starting with the ones who, well, literally hate him, and working our way up to the ones who are his absolute best friends. So let's get right into it with the first character who's actually at a minus 10% friend percentage. And that's, of course, Aka Inu. Yeah, these two absolutely hate each other. Aka Inu hates Luffy for being a chaotic pirate, while Luffy hates Aka Inu for turning his brother Ace into a donut right in front of him. And yeah, Aka Inu would love nothing more than to turn Luffy into a donut as well. So the next time these guys meet, it's going down. Talking about Aka Inu, we gotta talk about Blackbeard too, at 0%. Because sure, Aka Inu turned Ace into a donut, but let's not forget that Blackbeard is the whole reason Ace ended up captured by the Marines in the first place, as Blackbeard beat Ace and turned him into the Marines. So yeah, Luffy won't ever forgive him. And Blackbeard, he only sees Luffy as a rival he wants to crush. Oh, and they literally also argued over the taste of pie at Jaya. So these guys are complete opposites and will never be friends. But someone who is Luffy's friend, or well, at least at 2%, is Kaido. Yeah, it might sound crazy, but just hear me out, guys. Even though Kaido is a big bad evil villain and gave Luffy his toughest fight ever, Luffy actually had a fun time fighting this beast. Yeah, seriously. And Kaido, he was super impressed that Luffy could actually go toe-to-toe with him. But yeah, as Kaido basically destroyed Wano, hurt innocent people, and made life a living hell for everyone, Luffy just can't be friends with this guy. So instead, let's talk about Buggy the Clown at 5%. The first time these two met, Luffy literally sent Buggy flying. And sure, they technically teamed up at Impel Down, but don't forget, Buggy tried to abandon Luffy. Because Buggy just can't stand how much Luffy reminds him of Shanks, it seriously drives him crazy. So Buggy doesn't like Luffy at all, and Luffy, he doesn't like Buggy either. And when he saw Buggy somehow became a Yonko, he seriously thought it was fake, because Luffy sees Buggy as nothing more than a joke, and he even said Buggy was an idiot. Moving up to 15%, we've got Crocodile. Although, yeah, at first, these two hated each other. Luffy hated Crocodile for what he did to Vivy and her country, and Crocodile, he hated Luffy for being a pain in the ass and trying to ruin his plans. But later, after teaming up at Impel Down, Crocodile actually saved Ace's life. Although that, of course, didn't help in the end. But that wasn't all. Crocodile also saved Luffy himself, from both Mihawk and Aka Inu. So yeah, Luffy definitely started to respect Crocodile, and Crocodile clearly respects Luffy's strength and determination, although he, of course, would never admit it. Still, what Crocodile did to Vivy and Alabasta was unforgivable, so Crocodile can't be higher than 15%. But someone who is higher than 15%, at 45%, is Katakuri. We all remember that insane fight between Luffy and Katakuri, right? Both of them pushed each other to the absolute limit, and they got a ton of respect for each other's strength and determination. But in the end, Luffy took Katakuri down. However, Luffy didn't just leave him lying there. No, he actually covered Katakuri's mouth with his hat. Why? Because he knew Katakuri was self-conscious about it and didn't want anyone to see it. And that right there is real respect. Oh, and don't forget that we even see that Katakuri smiled when he found out Luffy had made it out of Big Mom's territory safely. But that said, they're still not best friends. So instead, let's talk about Bartolomeo at 50%. We all know Barto is a Luffy superfan. Like, he basically worships Luffy like a god, looks up to him as his hero, and even started a pirate crew that's literally a Luffy fan club. Yeah, he's just that obsessed. And Luffy, he does see Barto as a friend, especially after everything Barto did to help at Dressrosa. But yeah, although Barto of course wants to be Luffy's absolute best friend, Luffy only sees him as a friend, and that's why he can only be at 50%. Moving on, we've got Boa Hancock at 70%. Just like Barto, Hancock is absolutely obsessed with Luffy, like she's literally got a giant Luffy poster hanging on Kuja Castle. She's of course also madly in love with him and dreams of being his wife. She would also literally do anything for him, like we've seen her do multiple times. And Luffy, well, he definitely likes Hancock a lot. He's super grateful for all the help she's given him, like giving him the key to Ace's chains back at Marineford. But the best thing she's ever done for him? Yeah, that's easily giving him a mountain of meat. Like, anyone who gives Luffy this amount of meat is of course a very good friend to him. Next up, Luffy's mentor, the Dark King, Silver's Rayleigh at 80%. Rayleigh has called Luffy his pupil in front of the Marines, compared him to his old best friend Goldie Roger, and he's even said that Luffy is worthy of wearing the straw hat. That's some insanely high praise, right? And of course, he trained Luffy for 2 full years and taught him everything he knew. So Luffy respects and likes Rayleigh a lot. And fun fact, Luffy's actually spent more time with Rayleigh than any of the Straw Hats. So yeah, these two are definitely very good friends. Now, at 85%, let's talk about Trafalgar Law. Yeah, Law might get super annoyed by Luffy's recklessness, but still, these two have built a deep bond of trust and respect, and they care about each other. A lot. Like Law literally saved Luffy's life at Marineford, and Luffy instantly trusted him on Punk Hazard without hesitation. And since then, they've been at both Dressrosa and Wano together, fighting side by side, and they definitely respect each other's strength and determination. Sure, Law might yell at Luffy for being an idiot, but Luffy basically treats Law like a crewmate. Still, they're not the bestest of friends. Instead, they are more friendly rivals who both compete for the One Piece. Moving all the way up to 90%, we've got Koby. Koby was actually the very first friend Luffy made on his pirate journey, after Luffy saved him from the Alvida pirates and inspired him to chase his dream of becoming a Marine. And even though they ended up on opposite sides, they've always been very close friends. Like, Koby literally cried when he saw Luffy on the news, because he was just that proud of him. But here's the thing, Koby is a Marine, and during Marineford, when Luffy was trying to save Ace, Koby actually stepped in to stop him. Although, yeah, he got absolutely one-shotted. So even though Luffy gets Koby's sense of justice, in that moment, it was personal. So Koby can't be higher than 90%. So instead, we've got another character at 90%, and that's Shanks. Shanks is literally the reason Luffy even wanted to become a pirate in the first place. As a kid, Luffy looked up to Shanks as his hero, and after Shanks sacrificed his arm to save him, that admiration turned into serious respect. Shanks was also the first person to believe in Luffy's dream, giving him his straw hat as a promise that he'd become a great pirate one day. And even now, Luffy treasures that hat more than anything, and he's determined to return it once he finally surpasses Shanks. Now, seeing how far Luffy has come, Shanks is really proud of him. Still, Shanks can't be higher than 90%. Why? Well, because although they of course are very close, Shanks is more a mentor and role model to Luffy than a best friend. But getting closer to that 100%, we reach 95%. And next up, we gotta talk about 2 of the Straw Hat Pirates, Brook and Frankie. Luffy sees both Brook and Frankie as more than just crewmates. They're family. And Brook and Frankie, they've got nothing but pure respect, admiration, and love for their captain. And Frankie's always ready to go into battle for Luffy, and Brook, he'd risk his life for him. So although they goof around a lot, both Frankie and Brook will always have Luffy's back, no matter what, and the same goes for Luffy. Staying at 95%, we've got Utah. Luffy and Utah met as kids in Fuchsia Village, and the second they met, they literally became best friends. They competed, explored, had the time of their lives, and formed a special bond. But when the Red Hair Pirates left the village and Shanks came back without Utah, he told Luffy she wasn't coming back. And Luffy was so upset he was angry at Shanks for a while. Now I know what you're thinking, but Utah isn't even canon. Well, guess what? Oda himself confirmed that her childhood with Luffy is canon. So while the events of the movie film Red aren't part of the main story, their friendship is. Anyway, now finally we've hit 100%, and that means we're talking about Luffy's absolute best friends. And first up, it's gotta be Bon Clay. Like, just look at these two. They are obviously best friends. Bon Clay loves Luffy so much that he literally risked everything to save him at Impel Down. He dragged Luffy through that hellish prison, got him to Ivankov, and when it was time to escape, he even stayed behind and sacrificed himself so Luffy could go save his brother. And Luffy will of course never forget what Bon Clay did for him. So Bon Clay will always be one of Luffy's absolute best friends. And of course, Jinbe will also always be one of Luffy's best friends, so that's why he's also at 100%. These two share a seriously deep bond, as back at Marineford, Jinbe literally risked his life to protect Luffy, taking hit after hit just to keep him alive. But that's not all. Right after the war, Luffy was an emotional wreck, and Jinbe was the one who helped him cope with his brother's death. So, he didn't just save Luffy physically, he saved him mentally too. And let's not forget, when Luffy needed blood to survive at Fishman Island, Jinbe gave him his own blood without hesitation. So Luffy will never forget everything Jinbe has done for him, and he's super happy that Jinbe finally joined the crew. Because if there's anyone Luffy can always count on, Jinbe is definitely one of them. Continuing with the Straw Hats, let's talk about Nico Robin, who's also at 100%. Although they started off as enemies, Luffy still saved her life at Alabasta, and that moment gave Robin a whole new purpose in life, and she decided to join the crew. Although they weren't that happy about it, except of course for Sanji. Anyway, Luffy sees Robin as family, so that's why he declared war against the entire world government just to bring her back at Enies Lobby. And for Robin, Luffy was literally the one who gave her a reason to live, as she finally had the kind of friend she'd always dreamed of. So now, both Robin and Luffy would die for each other, and Robin absolutely sees Luffy as her #1 best friend. Which, of course, Chopper also does, so he's definitely at 100% too. Even though Luffy literally calls him emergency food, and sometimes even tries to eat him, these two are still best friends for life. Like, Chopper cares so much about Luffy that he literally jumped into the ocean to try and save him, even though he of course ended up having to be dragged out himself. And Luffy, he's jumped into the ocean to save Chopper too. Like, do I even need to say more than that? They'd risk their lives for each other, and they're absolutely best friends. Alright, let's move on to Luffy's left-hand man, Sanji, at 100%. Sure, Sanji gets mad at Luffy a lot, especially when Luffy steals the crew's food. Still, these two have crazy respect for each other's strength and determination. And Luffy, he definitely respects Sanji's insanely good food. Like, anyone who can cook up a 5-star meal for Luffy is automatically his best friend. Anyway, these two would literally do anything for each other. Like, Luffy went through absolute hell to bring Sanji back at Whole Cake Island. He even refused to eat until Sanji cooked for him again. Oh, and don't forget he literally said, "I can't become Pirate King without you." And Sanji, he was ready to take all of Luffy's pain from Kuma at Thriller Bark. So Sanji's obviously at 100%. But talking about taking Luffy's pain from Kuma at Thriller Bark and being Luffy's left-hand man, we of course got to talk about his right-hand man, Roronoa Zoro, at 100%. Yeah, if loyalty were a person, it'd be Zoro. Like, this guy will do anything for his captain, even die for him. That's why he was willing to take all of Luffy's pain from Kuma, which of course gave us the iconic "nothing happened" moment. And Luffy of course knows how loyal Zoro is, but he also knows how insanely strong he is. Like, remember Luffy's fight against Kaido? Well, after Luffy used Gear 4, he had to take a nap to regain his strength. So he straight up just told Zoro he needed to hold off Kaido for 5 minutes, while he took a nap. Yeah, Luffy was so confident in Zoro's strength, he literally fell asleep in the middle of a fight against an emperor. But aside from all the badass moments, they're absolutely best friends outside all the fighting stuff too. Staying at 100%, let's talk about Usopp. Yeah, we all remember their big fight at Water 7 when they clashed over the Going Merry. Usopp even left the crew. But hey, families fight, right? And these two, yeah, they're basically brothers. They goof around all the time, even when they're in danger. Although, yeah, it usually ends with them getting smacked for it. But of course, when things get serious, Luffy and Usopp always have each other's backs, no matter what. Now, the last Straw Hat we gotta talk about is Nami, and she's of course also at 100%. Yeah, she might yell at him, punch him, straight up just put him in a jail cell when she's angry with him. Okay, I hear it sounds bad, but she genuinely cares about him so much. Like, these two have been through everything together, and Nami will never forget how Luffy placed his hat on her head before fighting Arlong to finally free her from his tyranny. That's why when Ulti told Nami to say that Luffy would never become the Pirate King, Nami didn't hesitate for a second to say that Luffy will become the king of the pirates, even though she knew she would kill her. And Luffy, he's risked his life for her time and time again. Like, remember when he climbed that mountain of doom at Drum Island to get her to a doctor? Yeah, that's love right there. So yeah, these two have complete trust in each other. Nami never doubts his strength, and Luffy never doubts her navigation skills. So Nami's easily at 100%. But wait, did I say Nami was the last Straw Hat? Well, I lied. Because Vivy is basically a Straw Hat too, and just like the rest of the crew, she's also at a 100% friendship score with Luffy. Vivy will always be grateful to Luffy for saving Alabasta, and she got so close to him and the crew that she legit considered giving up being a princess just to keep sailing with them. And even though Luffy literally punched her in the face, she still has total trust in him and cares about him so much. And Luffy, he cared about Vivy so much that he was determined to take down Crocodile for her. And before leaving Alabasta, Luffy literally begged her to join the crew. But even though she didn't join them, they all held up the X on their arms to show she'd always be one of them. Now, even after years apart, when Luffy found out Cobra was killed and Vivy went missing, he was ready to go to war with the entire world government just to make sure she was okay. So that said, with that level of loyalty, trust, and unbreakable bond, Vivy and Luffy are absolutely best friends. And of course, Luffy's brothers, Ace and Sabo, are also absolutely at 100%. Luffy loves his brothers and looks up to them, and both Ace and Sabo love him just as much. They'll never forget the fun and wild memories together as kids, and they truly became a family. So the three of them stuck together, causing chaos, dreaming of becoming pirates, and just living free. They also made a promise to sail the seas one day, and even when they thought Sabo died and was super sad, Luffy and Ace kept their dreams alive. Then, when Ace died, it absolutely crushed both Luffy and Sabo. And we could all see how much Sabo meant to Luffy when they reunited in Dressrosa. So yeah, Luffy, Ace, and Sabo will always be true brothers. Oh, you probably thought we were done. Nope! We've still got one character left who's Luffy's absolute best friend, at infinite %. Can you guess who it is? Well, it's of course, meat! Yeah, Luffy and meat are literally soulmates. Like, Luffy is obsessed with meat. He daydreams about it, talks about it non-stop, and if he so much as hears the word meat, he's already drooling. So meat is absolutely Luffy's best friend. How much do you like Luffy? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and watch this video next.